All right. Think we solved the issue there. The power of going live, right? But let's jump back into where we started. So I'll start with a quote from Dean Smith. Dean Smith said, "One person's selfish attitude can poison a locker room and make it hard, if not impossible, to establish teamwork." So, what does a me first attitude? How does that play out in sports? I've seen it in the sports realm. I've seen it in the corporate realm, the government realm, the retail realm. I've seen it in sales. I've seen it in logistics. I've seen it everywhere because pride is everywhere. We're not talking about pride related to what's going on this month in the month of June. We're talking about pride, the spirit, the enemy that sleeps in your bed that you don't even know is there. That pride, the pride is at the root of most of the decisions that we make. That pride. Yeah, it happens in every sport I could ever think of. I can imagine. Maybe excluding golf and tennis. But there's some tangible examples of some really selfish athletes that put themselves before the team. Proverbs 11:2 says that when pride comes, then comes disgrace. But with humility comes wisdom. Proverbs 16, verse 18 says, "Pride goes before destruction, and arrogance and conceit comes before a fall." That's how powerful the impact of pride is. It's one thing to fight for your rights. That's one thing. But to elevate your desires, your wants over everything else, that's totally different. And pride leads us along that path. Pride takes us to that place. And quick note to our Twitter family, we can't monitor Twitter comments. So if you don't mind, jump in on our YouTube channel and the link below on all of our social media platforms. You can send your comments there, your questions. We'll answer those as we have time during the show. But one thing I noticed about sports, and I've seen so many examples. I mean, we talked about it before, but there's players that have killed dynasties, have ended potential repeat Super Bowl runs. They are TV personalities, whether they're former athletes or just journalists and have not ever played the sport that they're covering. They've killed great TV sports talk shows just because they didn't play well with others. Because they didn't play well with others. And I grew up in New York City, and for me, AM sports talk radio was part of my commute. It was part of my morning. It was part of my everyday. And for me, I just had a challenge with some of the personalities and how they came and kind of took over the show, changed it, made it into something else that I didn't recognize anymore. I won't name all the names. I think I already did it earlier, but glad nobody can hear that. But those are the kind of things that, I think impact you guys. I want to ask the questions again that we asked on social media platforms. First question: what's your first and natural reaction when a player on your favorite sports team goes into business for himself or herself at the expense of the team? And the second question is, who do you think is the most selfish player in sports, regardless of sport, any sport, or the most selfish sports personality? Love to hear your thoughts and those answers to those two questions. I'll say them again. Number one, what's your first and natural reaction when a player on your favorite sports team goes into business for him or herself at the expense of the team? Want to hear your thoughts on that. Second question, who do you think is the most selfish player, regardless of sport, or the most selfish sports personality? Love to hear your thoughts on that, please. Share that when you get a chance. Hit us up on the YouTube comments. We got several of those coming in. We're going to be using those really shortly, okay? But like I was saying before, there's several players that have killed dynasties and their potential Super Bowl runs, playoff runs in baseball. We've seen it so many times. We're going to talk about a few of those as much as we can get into for today. Excuse me. But it doesn't matter if it's team sports, theater, corporate sales, pro wrestling. People go into business for themselves all the time. They kick the original plan and they make a spotlight play for themselves. And it happens so often that I can't even count how many times it's happened. And it's to the point now, this is one of my main concerns. It's gotten to the point now where it's become normal. And it's been so normalized that we accept it. And we say, you know what? Pride, come on in, be a part of our family. We're making dinner, pull up a chair. That's what we're doing right now. And we're saying that, you know what? Rather than deal with this and address the issue, which is the spirit of pride, address the issue, making it normal. So you know what? That's how people are. We can't change that. It is what it is. That's not going to work. And we got to stand and fight against that kind of stuff. I mean, for example, if you missed a three-pointer with no time left in the finals, you go home, right? And your entire team probably doesn't want to play with you anymore because that probably wasn't the play that was being run. They literally take their ball and go home. But if you make that three-pointer with no time left in the finals, your team's going to publicly cheer you and congratulate you while you do your signature dance. But if that wasn't the play, I wonder how the staff and your peers and ownership actually feel about it, because are you coachable? Are you a team player? I mean, so I said it was a lucky shot. You made it. Hey, you guys are champions. It's all good. But during the playoffs, that's one thing. But how about during the regular season? It's not a good look when you go off script and do what you want to do, whether it's good or bad. And I just feel like in sports, we accept the good scenarios because they turned out well for our team, but we ignore the fact that pride was at the root of it. And we talked about in that proverb, pride goes before destruction. When you see pride on the scene, destruction is next. When you see pride first, destruction is next. You understand? That's what we're talking about. Good morning to our friends out there, guys. Good morning. Thanks for jumping onto the scene and to the show. Appreciate you so much. But that pride is something that we have to address. And it's a human issue, definitely, but it's definitely a spiritual issue as well. And really, in either scenario, I don't care if it turns out to be good or bad, when pride is involved, it's not a W for anybody. It's always the start of something bad. Like I said before, out of Proverbs 16 and 18, when pride comes, destruction's right after it. Don't forget that part. When you see pride, destruction is coming. I say that again for those in the back. I don't want you to miss this. It's really important. When you see pride, destruction is next. When you see arrogance and conceit, a fall is not far behind it. It's really important. And I'm not sure if it's a good or bad thing, but I can recall so many instances where pride ruined a good thing. I mean, there's some TV shows that you guys might recall. They were going great. Everybody loved it. They were at the height of their popularity. But one dude or one lady didn't like their role in this, or they wanted more money or whatever it was. And guess what happened to the show? At the loss of all of us that were viewers that loved the show, enjoyed it, considered it quality programming, and now it's gone. Why did that happen? You can say contract dispute. You can say a lust for more money, more creative roles in the background, or we can call it what it actually is. And it's pride. In fact, pride does that every single time. All the way back from the Garden of Eden, with Adam and Eve and taking a bite of the fruit, all the way up until now, June 12th, whatever, 2023. When pride goes, destruction comes right after it. Don't forget that's really important. I remember that so many times. I mean, pride affects your level of cooperation. Pride affects synchronicity. Teamwork, even in a good matchup, pride can still show up. I mean, I've even seen that in the sport of pro wrestling. We're not talking about pro wrestling right now, but there's a great example in there. I've seen it so many times. Even though people might say, oh, it's fake, it's this and that, but there is a level of cooperation that had to happen in that match for the crowd to get what they want and for the two participants to put on a good show and have continuity and tell a story within the squared circle, right? That has to happen. And one of the things that I think is critical is that neither of the participants in the squared circle, in the wrestling match, can't operate in pride. Stick to the script, do what you do, stay in character, do what you guys practice, what you worked on, what you planned, what you choreographed, whatever. I've seen people get injured real life because somebody walked in pride and didn't like how something went, didn't like what was agreed to or arranged, and went and did their own thing, kind of went into business for themselves. People are out for a whole year because of the ACL injury and stuff like that. That's the kind of thing that goes on. And thanks for the comment, man. I got some information on my profile on our Twitter page if that helps you, but I appreciate the thoughts, man. It means a lot. I've seen it so many times in wrestling as well. I mean, guys like, for example, Nature Boy Ric Flair, Daniel Bryan. These are the probably two names that come to mind right now that have massive success, but they always do what makes business sense. I can't say that about everybody, but they always do what makes business sense. All of their years, their entire career, from New Japan Pro Wrestling all the way into the States, they always did what made business sense. If they had to lay down for somebody, they would lay down for somebody. If they had to go ahead and stand up for their rights in the area, they would do that. But they are very rare in the business of professional wrestling. Who remembers the guy, Bad News Brown? You remember him? He used to be with New Japan Pro Wrestling, WWF, Stampede Wrestling, a whole bunch of places where he worked. But he refused to do a job for somebody in, I don't know if it was Hulk Hogan, I forgot who it was. He refused a job for somebody. And he ended up having to literally work the rest of his life, scraping by, just because he wouldn't do what was best for business. Pride caused him to be at a place where he lived in check to check, when he could have had millions of dollars, secured a legacy for his family. I ain't saying sell out. I'm just saying because of his pride, he missed out on humongous paydays where he could have been a name that you're talking about for the Hall of Fame. He's not in the Hall of Fame discussion right now. And part of the reason why is pride. Think about Bret the Hitman Hart. The Montreal screw job is a big deal that people still talk about today. He was going to leave the WWF for the WCW, but he didn't want to leave the company with an L because he was a champion at the time. And it was a time-honored tradition that when you leave a company, you drop the belt. Everybody knows that from, I don't care if it's NXT, AEW, everybody knows that. When you leave a company, you drop the belt. Because of pride, though, Bret Hart wouldn't do that. And it created a massive drama and one of the ugliest incidents in wrestling history. Look it up and check it out. Fabulous Moolah is a great example of that. She was a champion for 26 years. Imagine that. Roman Reigns is never going to touch that. 26 years. She was also considered, in some ways, a manipulator and a pimp, if I can say that. Pride was at the core of all these examples that I'm telling you about. Add CM Punk and John Cena and Triple H and Hulk Hogan, and you have a lot of examples of things where people say, you know what? It doesn't work for me. I'm not doing that. I am who I am, and you're going to do what I say. What does that mean? What it means, in short, in one word, is pride. Why are we talking about pride today? I think it's important, but I want to kind of express why we're talking about it today. In my life in coaching and mentoring people, giving and receiving both of those, being coached and being mentored as well, it taught me a very valuable lesson. Man by nature is rebellious. This isn't a secret. Not teaching you anything new. You know that already. It's in some way, shape, or form in all of us. Man is rebellious. But to accomplish a corporate mission, we have to take that part of us. That part that we know is there. Because if somebody tells you on your job, you know what? I want you to come in on Sunday and do the GPS reports. And you nod and your boss is saying, okay. But in your heart, you're saying, I ain't coming in on Sunday to do no GPS reports. I'm going to see the Panthers play. Even if the idea of your boss wasn't a great idea, where is pride in that situation? In your response? In your deciding to call out because you didn't want to come in? Where is pride at? It's in the little things, man. Pride starts there. Don't forget what I said. When pride shows up, whenever you see pride, destruction is sure to follow. Whenever you see arrogance and conceit, a fall is right behind it. Love that quote about Dean Smith. Thank you, nothing new. I appreciate it, man. He coached James Worthy, Sam Perkins, and Michael Jordan, so he knows pride when he sees them. I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. But this isn't a secret. We all have to do with that part of ourselves, but we got to take that part. If you want to accomplish a corporate mission now, by the way, if you want to be a solo artist, a free agent all your life, run with that, baby. But if you want to be part of a team and accomplish a team goal, I don't care if it's sports. I don't care if it's in your job. I don't care if it's in your family, your household, with you and your spouse. I don't care if it's in a family business, perhaps. Whatever it is. If you want to accomplish a corporate mission, a team goal, that part that I'm talking about, that prideful part, that conceited part that we all have in us. And I'm saying this, speaking to myself as well, Please don't understand that this is not judgment against you. I'm telling you what I know and what I've seen. I believe you know this as well. If you step back and take a minute, you'll see this yourself. We can't allow ourselves to ignore that part. We got to take that part. We got to submit it. Take that part and give it over. Place it in capable hands. God, preferably. We got to take that part of us and give it over so that we can go ahead and do whatever the work is to accomplish that mission. You can decide what that mission is. You got plenty of examples, I'm sure, things that you're thinking about. What's that mission? How we feel really isn't relevant. Whether we think the plan is good or not, is also not relevant. We're blessed in America because we enjoy our freedoms. We don't have officials dragging us out of churches and throwing us into prison because we're violating the law. We like doing our own thing. It's true. We do. We like doing our own thing, and it's not really surprising. But it's a part that we got to address. I've seen it in the business realm as well. People who go into business for themselves, they know that if they do certain things, it elevates them. It elevates their cachet. It makes them look good in front of people they want to impress. But the bottom line is that pride is at the root of it. They're not doing it for the people who they're dragging along with them on their road to success. It's that little part of them that wants to be recognized, that wants to be famous, that wants to be greater than everybody else, that want to be elevated beyond their circumstances. That little part of them, that little part is in all of us. It's called pride. So we can knock Adam for eating the fruit because his wife gave it to him. We can do that. We can talk about that kind of stuff. We can talk about the Tower of Babel and these guys trying to build a tower that reaches all the way to heaven just because they didn't want to fall into a category where they had to obey certain standards and certain laws. They wanted to do their own thing, and they did it out of fear as well. They want to protect their own name. I mean, there's so many examples of that little part that if we ignore it, it becomes big, and immediately following it is destruction, and that's pride. I mean, take the NBA, for example. If I say the name Jordan Poole, what comes to mind for you? If I say the name Jordan Poole, see, people probably are thinking about somebody who was considered a dynasty killer. Perhaps Golden State was going to go on that next run and have a string of championships. Everybody was still there for, I think, about 3 more years at least, till 2025, 2026. It could have been a shot. It could have been a shot. But everybody's going to point to Jordan Poole, not Steph Curry shooting, not Draymond fouling out and having issues and stuff. They're going to talk about Jordan Poole. Was there pride involved in why this next opportunity at the dynasty didn't happen? People are still arguing about who actually submarined the Chicago Bulls dynasty. I know I got some Bull fans out here. I'm hearing from them right now. Was it Jerry Krause? Or was it Phil Jackson not wanting to come back for specific reasons? And you guys can share about that if you want to. Who actually killed the Chicago Bulls dynasty? Was pride involved in it? Because when you read the accounts, it kind of sounds like pride was at the root of why this didn't work out again. I got a personal example of my own with the New York Football Giants. That year that we won the Super Bowl, the first one in several years since 2000, well, since 1986, actually. Hope I got that year right. But Plaxico Burress, that's a name. When I hear that name, I think about the issue of pride. You just won a Super Bowl. You're probably celebrating, getting your buzz on, whatever you're doing. You go into a club wearing sweatpants, carrying a pistol. Now, I'm aware of carry laws and constitutional rights in that area, so I respect that completely. I know what's going on. I'm personally affected by it, put it like that. But even I know that I can't wear no velour sweatpants and have a pistol with no safety on top of that. You asking for trouble. And everybody that I heard of, it's very rare that the Giants get credit for most anything that we do. has a team. It's very rare. But most of the pundits, they felt that the Giants could easily repeat and do that quite easily the following year after the Super Bowl. Check it out. Go back and research it. It was nothing but talk about that. But he shot himself in the club. And our best wide receiver was unable to play. And then he had to deal with the law in regards to carrying a weapon in New York City, it firing in a public place, then the injuries that had to go with that, the rehab, and the look on the team and all the media coverage and the attention that was unwanted that the New York Giants had to deal with. All because one person decided to do something that was probably not advisable. Again, it's not just a bad decision. We can't just lay it off on and use a cliche to cover it up. It's not just about a bad decision. It's about something else more than that. It was about that part. It's about that part. How about the name Hanley Ramirez? Baseball fan. Do you remember him? I know I remember him. Miami Marlins. I believe he's on the Red Sox as well, if I'm not mistaken. Lazy. He was considered lazy. Poor fielding. Refused to move positions when Jose Reyes was coming in from the Mets. Could have made the team better, but he was fighting for his spot. Why? Because of that part. Scottie Pippen hasn't played in years. Part of one of the greatest dynasties in history, if not the greatest. You can decide that. What's he doing right now? He's talking. He's spilling the tea, so to speak. He's slinging the mud. Why is he doing that? For money? Even if that's a yes. The real answer is pride. Don't forget, when pride comes, what follows it? Destruction. When arrogance and conceit show up, what follows it? A fall. How about a really great or bad example, depending on how you see it, is Manny Ramirez. An absolutely incredible example of what pride can do. He was known to have taken a woman's fertility drug, HCG. He took bathroom breaks during the game. I mean, most of the stuff I actually see with my own eyes. Taking bathroom breaks during the game. He was accused of dogging it and quitting on his team. And made a phone call during a game on top of the Green Monster. I'm drinking some coffee on that one. Yes, he made a phone call during a game that they were actually playing in on top of the Green Monster at Fenway. If that doesn't sound like pride to you, if that's not that part, I don't know what it is. I love this comment about Pete Rose. I think during the Big Red Machine days, I remember them really well, but I don't want to go too far into that. But there was a lot of attitude like that during that time. And Pete Rose, I mean, I heard about his toxicity in the locker room. And, you know, as great a talent as he was, and as great a name as he was, what caused that? It goes back to the same place. It's about that part. When pride comes, whenever you see pride, whenever pride is at the forefront, what's next? Destruction. Back to Manny Ramirez. I mean, the man, even with all the things I just named, I named 3 or 4 things. That was enough of an indictment for anybody in team sports. To use something illegal to try to enhance your name and your brand, cutting out on your team as unorthodox as possible. He also campaigned for reality shows while the game was going on. Carrying signs saying Manny being Manny, trying to get an endorsement deal or TV deal while his team is playing and trying to fight for relevance and a division and hopefully a World Series championship. What would make a man do that? It's that part. And we can go ahead and point fingers at him and judge him, but the whole point of this whole show, if everything cuts out, and I can't say another word, this isn't all of us. That part. All of us got it. We need to get it out, but we all got it. We got to deal with it, but we all got it though. And even, and this is hopefully it's not blasphemy, but the late great Kobe Bryant. It's been discussed that he was one of the most selfish players in NBA history. God rest his soul. I don't have a lot of context to say that, but I seen things on the court. I seen body language of other players, of coaches, when he made certain plays or when he decided to take a shot he didn't have. He did that a whole lot of times. I think there was a stat that he was like 20 times under 20% shooting, and he kept on shooting. Arguably the second best shooting guard of all time. And there's an argument that he is top 5 greatest. Some say top 3. Some say no, top 10. We can argue that on a different day. But he was known to refuse to pass up the shots that he had, knowing he didn't really have them. I can get with that. I mean, I know I saw plenty. But what makes a man go that route? It's the issue that you got to address, because when this happens, everything else comes after it. We talked a couple of weeks ago about an NBA player down there in Memphis. You know who? Mr. Morant. All the decisions that were made to lead up to where he is right now, what he's dealing with. Why do you think that happened? MJ himself had an incredible quote that I want to hear if you guys agree with this quote. I'm going to read it out to you. But it says, to be successful, you have to be selfish, or else you never achieve. Once you get to your highest level, then you have to be unselfish. Stay reachable, stay in touch, don't isolate. That's coming from who I believe is one of the greatest, if not the greatest of all time, Michael Jordan. He said when you first start out, you got to be selfish to be successful. But once you're successful, then you stop being selfish. What do you guys think about that quote? Did it make sense to you? Do you agree, disagree? Share your thoughts. We'll post them here if we can, or on our social media platforms. But back to our questions. Who do you think is the most selfish player? Excuse me. Most selfish player or sports personality that you can think of? For me, I think that, there's a lot of options. I mean, Bill Romanowski is somebody who he's done so many things that I think were detrimental to his team. He has to be up there. He was one of the guys on my dad's favorite team when he was alive. My dad was from New York. I have no idea why he liked the Oakland Raiders, but it is what it is, right? But he always talked about Romanowski whenever we had a chance to discuss football. I mean, Milton Bradley is a name that if you Google him, I won't even go into all about him. I don't think we have enough time. But Google Milton Bradley, and you will see what I'm talking about. You'll see why his name is in this list of potentially the most selfish player in baseball. Terrell Owens, Barry Bonds, Tiger Woods, Keyshawn Johnson, famous for saying, just give me the damn ball. Part of my speech. A-Rod, Brett Favre, I don't know how many times he retired and unretired. I think I lost count at 4. Tiger Woods, LeBron James, the self-professed king. We can debate that one later on as well. Different topic. But the options are right there. I mean, teenagers don't want to have parental oversight. Wives don't want husbands to tell them what to do. Citizens don't want government to get into their personal affairs. Large wage earners don't want to be heavily taxed. Motorists don't want speeding tickets. There are plenty of things where we have to deal with our pride. This is a battle that we have to fight even before the battles that we fight. This is the pre-battle. See, we're in our warehouse where we can wield our own authority. If you've ever been a supervisor before, and I have been, or a manager in some area in your trade or in your organization, you're in your warehouse. Easy. It's not easy. It's easy for us rather than be on the other side of things. Put it like that. Or we cringe at obeying authority ourselves, but we want to be in authority. But that's where the battles are lost and won. I don't care if it's construction, landscaping, project management, professional sports. Before you face your workload or irrational customers, unreasonable work conditions, or unreasonable pay, or unreasonable deadlines, you have to face that part. Excuse me. When pride comes, what comes after it? Destruction. When arrogance and conceit comes, what comes after it? A fall. The examples are too numerous. It's indisputable. Whenever you see pride, destruction comes after it. That's where the battles are lost and won, because we don't deal with that part of it. And the antidote for pride is humility. Not to get too deep, but let me ask you a question. How is it possible that someone with the power and the authority of a Jesus Christ can allow himself to not only be nailed to a cross, but also on top of that, to get beat on, spit on, scourged, slapped, when he got all the power? There was two options that he had. Pride, come down from that cross and lay everybody out. Call down a legion of angels and shut the whole thing down. Every enemy vanquished. Boom, blink of an eye, snap of a finger, out of here, gone, done, fini, done. Or be humble and receive what he received for a greater good, for our lives, for our healing, for our deliverance. Just one example that's close to my heart I wanted to share with you guys. That's just one example. You got guys on teams that won't pass a shot up because they worry about their brand. They're trying to make a name for themselves. That's where the battle is lost and won, because of that small part. I like the example of sports for a lot of reasons, but in this context, even more because it exposes our pride. How many of you have jumped out of your easy chair, pointed your finger at a TV set, or threw something at the TV set because a guy on your team screwed the pooch, made a mistake, tried to steal that base when he had no business even trying to do that, or taking a shot that he knows his 3% accuracy is extremely low, or his 3% efficiency is extremely low. But in the key moment, rather than pass it to somebody who has a better shot at a bucket, he takes a shot that he hardly ever makes, and he misses it, and your team loses the game. How many times have you seen somebody on your football team, the guy was wide open, got past coverage, went over the top of the secondary, quarterback releases the ball's in his hands, nobody near him for 25 yards, and he drops the ball? How many of you have went apoplectic towards the television set or on the sidelines if you were at the game? Everybody in here should be answering this. Everybody that's listening should be answering that. So we all did it. But it exposes our pride, because in that situation, and I've had discussions with people on this show and outside of it. If it was us and we had a shot to be tied in the bottom knife, you're on second base, you're going to steal. You don't care what the coach says. You see your shot, you're going to take it, right? A lot of folks who I know in their 30s, 40s, 50 years old, they would still do that today, they said. Their words, not mine. Not when we're 10 and 15 and 20. I'm talking about 40, 50, 60-year-olds. They said they would still do it no matter what. What makes them say that? That small part. In that baseball scenario, you got to care about the pitcher's success rate against stolen bases. That plays a part. When the coaches are telling you don't steal, they're telling you that for a reason, because they know the pitcher's success rate against stolen bases in this year. You don't care about the coaching. You don't care about the team either. All you care about is you, that small part. I don't care if it's team dynamics in the corporate world or otherwise. The plan is rarely changed midway. Whatever the plan is, whatever the goal is, some things have to change sometime. I know plans do change. But when you have a consensus, you execute. Is this an unsolvable problem? Is this fixable? Or is this just life and we can't do anything about it? What do you think about that? Is it a matter of intelligence? Is it a matter of humility? So I know the smart sports fan can see this on the field and on the court. But here's my last question. My last couple of questions I want to ask you guys before we close out today. The smart sports fan can see it on the field and on the court. I know that. But can you see it in yourself, though? Can you see this? Don't post a comment about that part, please. This is just you and I talking. Can you see it? Can you see it in yourself? Can you detect the pride? See, in situations where there's a team or organization or some kind of formed unit, do you bring pride to the table? It's something to think about. Because that small part, once that shows up, what comes after pride? Destruction. What comes after arrogance and conceit? A fall. It happens every time. I don't care if it's a sport. I don't care if it's somebody in the business world. I don't care if it's somebody in the political world. It don't matter. You can add all the names you want. But this has been happening for years and centuries. There has to be a lesson for us to learn here in this. It's been happening since the Garden of Eden, which it was, to the Tower of Babel, the kings losing their spot because they wanted to go ahead and exert themselves above the kingdom and above everything else. Religious leaders put themselves before people, doing things that are immoral. A Pharaoh that says, let my people go. I ain't let nobody go. What God can take these people out of my hands? And look what happened to the Pharaoh. Jonah tried to run away from God. Like that's even possible. Just because he didn't want to help somebody who God wanted helped. It's a small part. And I don't care what genre we're talking about. I don't care if it's sports. I don't care if it's the corporate world. I don't care if it's your family. I don't care what the situation is. Politics, you name it, whatever it is. Pick a category. Pride plays a part. And when you see pride, destruction is soon to follow. Do you know what it looks like when you see it? Can you recognize it at this point? Or are you so far gone that you don't even know what it means, what it looks like? Can it be living with you in your present life and you don't even know it's there? Is that where we are? Serious questions, seriously. Do you recognize pride in your life right now? Can you see it? Because humility is the only response to this. If someone's trying to get on your last nerve, your reserve nerve, and you want to go off, I'm going to be honest with you, that's pride. You got to understand that. You want to let somebody know and send a real long post and let them know, it's pride. If you want to slap somebody because they cut you off on the road, that's pride. Pure and simple. Where does it show up the most in your life? Can you recognize it? Can you see it? Do you know what's even there? Or have you been living with this so long that you have no idea? Something to think about, guys. We close our show out. Thank you again for joining us on They Call Me Mr. U, the all-purpose pod for an all-purpose life, wherever you are today. And however you are listening to They Call Me Mr. U, the podcast, we thank you so much for making us a part of your morning, your day, and your week. With your weekly mirror check before you do what? Go change the world. So. Thank you so much, guys. I hope this made sense to you. Don't forget, you heard talk about selfish players and selfish sports personalities. There's so many that we haven't even named at all. Haven't even got covered under this show. There's so many of them. So many of them. I've heard about Skip Bayless. I heard about Mike Francesa and the Mad Dog and Stephen A. Smith. There's so many names, so many players. All got one thing in common. That part. Thank you for following us. We're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and of course, the Twitter. Thank you for downloading and subscribing to our show wherever you enjoy your podcast. We thank you again. Hope you have a great day. Love to hear the rest of your comments and thoughts and questions on our social media platforms, specifically Twitter and Facebook. Love to hear from you guys. Have a great day. Coach out.